When the past knocks again. The evening was quiet when Baris Arduc returned home after a long day. He placed his keys on the table, loosened his jacket, and looked around the room. Everything was familiar, yet something about the evening felt different. He could not explain it. Sometimes a person can feel that something is about to change before there is any obvious reason. Baris walked toward the window and looked at the city lights. His phone suddenly vibrated. He glanced at the screen. It was a message from someone he had not expected to hear from. Elcin. Yet yesterday had shown her something different. Sometimes a chapter does not need to be closed forever. Sometimes it only needs a new page. Her phone vibrated. A message from Baris appeared. Good morning. I hope you slept well. She smiled. Good morning. I did. You. Eventually. She laughed. Still thinking too much? Maybe. A few seconds later, another message arrived. About yesterday? Baris replied. Yes. Elcin looked at the screen for a moment. So was I. Neither of them said anything more. They didn't need to. Their conversation from the previous day had already created a quiet understanding between them. Later that week, they met again. This time, they chose a small bookstore cafe that was almost empty in the afternoon. Elcin arrived carrying a book. Baris looked at it. You brought reading material? She smiled. I thought you might need something to do when I talk too much. He laughed. I don't think that's ever happened. You're being polite. Maybe. They sat down. The atmosphere was relaxed. There was no awkwardness. No need to discuss why they had met again. They were simply enjoying being together. After a few minutes, Baris looked at the book. What are you reading? Elcin showed him the cover. It's about making peace with the past. He smiled. That's convenient. She laughed. Very. He leaned back. Do you think you've made peace with yours? She thought carefully. Some parts. Only some. I think everyone has memories they understand differently as they grow older. Baris nodded. That's true. She continued. When you're younger, you think certain moments are the whole story. And later, you realize they were only one chapter. Baris smiled. That's a good way to see it. Their conversation moved naturally toward their own lives. They talked about choices they had made, places they had visited, people who had influenced them, dreams that had changed with time. Elcin admitted that she sometimes wondered whether she had been too focused on work. Baris understood. Work can fill your calendar, he said, but it doesn't always fill your life. She smiled. Exactly. There was a comfortable silence. Then Elcin asked, Do you think we missed something? Baris looked at her. What do you mean? During all those years. He thought for a moment. Maybe. She waited. But I don't think we should spend time regretting it. Why? Because if we had met earlier, we might not have been ready for this conversation. Elcin smiled. That's true. Maybe timing matters. She nodded. More than people realize. The afternoon passed quickly. When they finally left the cafe, neither wanted to say goodbye immediately. They walked through a nearby park. The trees moved gently in the breeze. Children played in the distance. People walked their dogs. Life continued around them. Elcin looked at Baris. Do you notice how ordinary everything feels? He smiled. Yes. And somehow that's what makes it special. Exactly. They continued walking. After a while, Elcin stopped. I want to ask you something. Go ahead. If the past hadn't knocked again, would you have opened the door? Baris thought about it. I don't know. She smiled. Honest. He continued. But I'm glad it did. Elcin looked down for a moment. So am I. Their eyes met. There was warmth in the moment. Nothing needed to be explained. Their renewed connection was becoming stronger through small acts of honesty. A message. A conversation. A shared laugh. A walk through the park. Nothing dramatic, but everything meaningful. As the weeks passed, they began to make time for each other more often. Sometimes they talked for only a few minutes. Sometimes their conversations lasted for hours. They discovered new things about each other while remembering old ones. One evening, Baris called Elcin. "Are you free tomorrow?" "Why?" "I found something." "What?" "An old photograph." She laughed. "Another one?" "Yes." "Where did you find it?" "In a box I hadn't opened in years." Elcin smiled. "What does it look like?" "You'll have to wait until tomorrow. Now I'm curious." "Good." The next afternoon, they met. Baris brought the photograph. Elcin looked at it and immediately smiled. There they were. Younger. Laughing. Standing among familiar faces. The photograph captured a moment neither had realized would become important. Elcin held it carefully. "We looked so happy." "We were." She smiled. "Do you miss who we were?" Baris shook his head. "I miss the simplicity." "Me too." He looked at the photograph. "But I don't want to go back." Elcin nodded. "Neither do I. Because we know more now. About life. About ourselves." She smiled. The photograph was placed on the table between them. It was no longer a reminder of something lost. It had become a bridge between the past and the present. A reminder of where their story had once been. And a quiet symbol of where it might go next. Later that evening, they sat outside. The sky was beginning to darken. Elcin looked at Baris. "Do you think people can become important again after being distant?" Baris smiled. "I think important people never completely stop being important." She looked at him. "Even after years?" "Especially after years." She smiled softly. "I think I needed to hear that." He nodded. "Then I'm glad you asked." The conversation became quiet. The city lights appeared one by one. Elcin looked toward the horizon. "I used to think the past was something we had to leave behind." Baris asked, "And now?" "Now I think we can carry the good parts with us." He smiled. "That's better." They remained together until the evening became late. When it was finally time to leave, Elcin stood. "Same time next week?" Baris smiled. "Definitely." She laughed. "You're getting used to this." "Maybe I am." She paused. "Good." Then she walked away. Baris watched her go. He realized that the past had not returned to interrupt his life. It had returned to remind him of something valuable. Some connections survive distance. Some memories survive time. And sometimes, two people can meet again without trying to recreate who they once were. They can simply become something new. That night, Elcin placed the old photograph beside her bedside table. She looked at it one more time before turning off the light. A smile appeared on her face. The past had knocked. They had opened the door. And now, instead of closing it again, they were curious about what might be waiting on the other side. The following weeks passed more quickly than either Baris or Elcin expected. What had begun as one unexpected meeting had slowly become a familiar part of their lives again. They no longer needed a special reason to talk. Sometimes Elcin sent a message simply because she remembered something funny. Sometimes Baris called to ask how her day had gone. And sometimes they met without planning anything complicated. Their renewed connection felt effortless. One afternoon, Elcin received a message from Baris. "I have an idea." She smiled. "That sounds dangerous." "Not dangerous. Just different." "What kind of different?" "You'll see." She laughed. "Fine. I'm curious." Later that day, Baris picked her up and drove toward a quiet area outside the busiest part of the city. Elcin looked out the window. "Where are we going?" "You'll know soon." She smiled. "You really enjoy keeping secrets." "Only small ones." After a while, They arrived at a peaceful location surrounded by trees. Elcin looked around. This is beautiful. Baris nodded. I thought you would like it. They walked along a quiet path. The air was fresh and the sounds of the city seemed far away. For a while, neither spoke. Then Elcin smiled. This reminds me of how we used to spend time. Without a schedule? Exactly. Baris laughed. We definitely need more days like this. They continued walking. Eventually, they found a small bench overlooking the landscape. They sat together. Elcin looked toward the distance. Do you ever wonder where we would be if we had never met? Baris smiled. Probably somewhere completely different. Do you think we would still have found our way back to each other? He thought about the question. I don't know. Then he looked at her. But I'm glad we did. Elcin smiled. Me too. A quiet breeze moved through the trees. The moment felt peaceful. There was no pressure. No expectations. Just two people enjoying the fact that life had brought them together again. After a while, Elcin reached into her bag and pulled out the old photograph. Baris laughed. You brought it. Of course. You really like that picture. She looked at it. I think I like what it reminds me of. What does it remind you of? That happiness doesn't always announce itself. Baris listened. Sometimes you're simply living a normal day, she continued, and years later, you realize it was one of the days you wanted to remember. He nodded. That's true. She carefully placed the photograph back in her bag. Maybe we're doing that again. Baris smiled. Creating memories without realizing it? Exactly. They both laughed. The afternoon continued with stories and small jokes. At one point, Baris remembered something from years earlier and tried to imitate the way Elcin had reacted to a particular situation. She laughed immediately. That is not how I reacted. It was exactly how you reacted. No. Yes. She shook her head. You remember everything incorrectly. Baris smiled. Then maybe we need to compare memories more often. She laughed. Maybe. Their playful conversation reminded them of the ease they had once shared. But there was something different now. They had grown older. They understood themselves better. Their conversations had more depth. Their friendship felt calmer, more intentional. As the sun began to set, they returned to the car. Elcin looked at Baris. Thank you for today. I'm glad you came. I needed this. Me too. They drove back toward the city. The sunset filled the sky with soft colors. Neither spoke much during the journey. The silence was comfortable. When they reached the city, Elcin looked at him. Do you think we're doing something important? Baris glanced at her. What do you mean? Spending time together again. He thought for a moment. Maybe. She smiled. I think we are. He nodded. Then let's not overthink it. She laughed. That sounds like advice for both of us. It probably is. They smiled. The next day, something unexpected happened. A professional opportunity brought their names together again. It was not something either had planned. When they heard about it, they immediately called each other. Did you hear? Elcin asked. Yes. What do you think? Baris smiled. I think it's interesting. Very interesting. They discussed the possibility for a long time. There was excitement in their voices. But there was also caution. They both knew that working together again could bring a lot of attention. They wanted to make sure that whatever they did, it felt right. Finally, Elcin said, maybe this is why we met again. Baris smiled. Maybe. Not just to remember, but to create something new. Exactly. The idea stayed with them. A new project could become another chapter in their journey. But they knew that the most important part was not the project itself. It was the trust they had rebuilt. They agreed to think about it carefully. Over the next few days, their conversations became more frequent. They discussed ideas. They exchanged thoughts. They encouraged each other. The professional possibility brought another dimension to their renewed connection. They were not simply remembering how well they had worked together. They were discovering that their understanding of each other had become stronger with time. One evening, Elcin called Baris. "I've made my decision." He smiled. "What did you decide?" "I want to do it." There was a pause. "So do I." She laughed. "Then I guess we're doing this." "Looks like it." She smiled. "I'm excited." "Me too." After the call ended, both remained quiet for a moment. They understood that something had changed. The past had brought them together. The present had given them a reason to stay connected. And now the future was beginning to open another door. The next morning, Baris received a message from Elcin. "Ready for the next chapter?" He smiled before replying. "Ready," she answered. "Then, let's make it a good one." Baris looked out the window. The city was beginning another busy day. But for him, the future suddenly felt a little more interesting. The past had knocked again. They had opened the door. They had remembered. They had listened. They had laughed. And now, they were choosing to move forward together. Not by returning to